yell. Keith is gonna be that I'm late. Okay, let's get into core strength for speed. Core strength for speed. All right, so Andrew, I guess should I call you in when I'm going to start writing the program on the napkin?
Here, press that whenever you're ready.
Oh wow! So we're gonna do something really cool today, where we're gonna get into program writing right here. Oh my gosh, dude! Yo, that is crazy. I almost want to give myself the middle finger here. That's wild. Wow, we're going pro. Andrew has got us with the setup. Trevor's got to come in and check this out, even though we're live currently online. I don't care. Wait, hang on. Look at this. Hang on. Watch this. Look.
Oh, that's so sick.
That's really good. Wow. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be fun, because I think that one, you guys are going to see how we sort of roll with a lot of different stuff today, but I think when you're looking at, does speed training matter for combat sports and striking? Yes, it does. I think speed training matters, especially when you're looking at speed training in regards to like wrestlers, or in regards to even fighters. I think you're doing sled work, you're doing hill sprints. There's going to be an endurance component, like the interval-based component around that, but also the actual act of moving as rapidly as possible is going to pay big-time dividends as a combat athlete, as a wrestler, I think taking shots and anything like that. So if we're looking at core strength for speed, I think the biggest thing that we initially, I just got done, I'm a little bit late here, but I just got done working with Nick Singleton. And I think one of the things around that is like, what do we do with core strength in Nick's workout today? So he did a really freaking awesome jump stay with some lifts. We were timing some of his speed, or we were trying to check out his velocity on some of his cleans. And we're looking at like, okay, what is that, how many meters per second can he move 140K clean? Okay. How many meters per second can he move his single leg on average at 150 kilos? And the big thing there is that to actually set up his core strength for his speed work is we've got to look at, I think, the most underrated, or the biggest area to make gains in core strength and core training is actually in the warm-up. I think oftentimes when we get into like core work or core strength, we think about doing like ab roller, which, all these things are great, ab roller or hollow body rocks or V-ups or pass the plate, whatever that might be. But one of the best things is to actually use core exercises to warm up effectively. And so we'll do specific ab work when we're doing a warm up, and then we lead into, so we'll actually do like a V-up or something like that. And then we'll get into some unstable positions to really try and light up the trunk. Okay. Then we get into an even more dynamic trunk exercise. So like a V-up, then you roll and you hold, like a Superman position. Then you roll back to the V-up position. You roll back to the Superman. And now you're warming up the hips and the glutes and everything together with the core. And then that's, the easiest low-hanging fruit is that oftentimes we'll have athletes that will say like, hey, my coach says I need to work on my core strength. When in reality, they probably have the core strength. It's just they're not warmed up effectively so that everything is linked together. And I think that I truly believe that the most important part around core strength is making sure that you're warming up the core, or the trunk in this specific case, to actually execute things well, because then you're going to get that energy transfer from the feet in through the legs into the implement of whatever you're moving, whether it's your body if you're sprinting, whether it's a barbell if you're doing a lifting movement, or even if you're applying force into an opponent. So the way that I program strength, core strength for speed, I'm gonna lay that out a little bit later, which you guys are gonna end up seeing. So you'll see. Whoops, let's go back to you guys will end up seeing in this scenario here. I'm gonna lay out, an example on this paper right here, and then you'll have a little bit better comprehension, and you're gonna be able to have a takeaway. You're gonna have a core workout that you can use. Okay, as you pull that out, and you're going to be like, all right, now I can go do this core workout that's actually effective. And I think that's a really important take home thing. So the best way that I like to program it, again, is going to be some specific warm-up movement pattern. Okay, so if we're looking at where I put that into the warm-up, there's going to be the general warm-up, there's going to be the specific core warm-up, and then there's going to be like the dynamic trunk control work that we're going to do, and then we'll get into our lift. Okay, and so if we're doing like a leg lift, that's where we might see a weightlifting derivative to actually execute like a power clean. Okay, and then what I like to do if I see someone is lagging, I might bring in like a front squat. Okay, so a front squat or a front single leg squat. Okay, front loaded single leg squat. These are really like the best movements for trunk control. Okay, oftentimes we think you got to train your core, and coaches will say like, we got to do more ab work or whatever that might be. And then all of a sudden, that stuff doesn't really carry over well. But if we do a front squat or a front single leg squat or a PA press, as we just talked about, now we see that core transfer actually to a full body movement, and then the athlete can then utilize that more effectively. So if we're doing like a front squat, sometimes if I notice that somebody collapses in a specific manner, or they rotate a little wonky, or they cut slowly to one side, if I recognize that could be a trunk issue, okay, so if I see that as a trunk issue, then the next thing that I'll do is I'll use a contrast method with that trunk movement. Okay, so I might use like a Chinese side bend. I might do like a specific banded warm-up that targets the stability and the control in a split position. So we might do something like that. Now, if I see somebody who's younger, who does like, this is really common with younger athletes, they'll do a V-up and they're like sitting on their lower back instead of getting up onto their butt. They don't look at the pivot point for a V-up should literally be your butt cheeks, and they're making the pivot point their lower back. And so sometimes if I have an athlete that I can see is not pivoting on their glutes, they're actually on their lower back, I will force them to do actual isolated ab work. But even in this case with a V-up, we're going to be doing a V-up even with some hip flexion. So there's going to be some hip action, and we want to see them actually use the glutes as a pivot point. So I'll say this, warm-ups is the best place in the program. Okay, the second most unique is going to be specific to a problem that I might see. So that's where we're going to use some type of compound movement or anything like that. One thing I'm just going to throw out there real quickly is like, we'll have coaches say, oh, little Johnny needs some more core work. And it's like, does he really need core work if he can clean 315 pounds in the hole? Like tell me he doesn't use his core when he's doing that. Tell me he's not using his core when he's doing these jumps or these cuts. Like sometimes it might be like their technique is not good in specific positions. Now, after I use that with a contrast movement, with a compound exercise, then I will get into some, simple accessory movements. So then it's like ab roller as an accessory, hanging leg raise as an accessory, V-ups past the plate as accessories. And then finally, we'll get into the next point, which is going to be once we get into like some special strength development where we're looking to peak an athlete. Let's say a golfer, right? If we have a golfer and we want them to be in peak condition, we might do, side medicine ball throws or something along those lines. That's when things get much more specific with where we're building towards. So I'm going to lay that out. That's how I program core strength for speed, but I'm going to show you guys in an actual program from that top down how that looks, and then we'll get rolling with this. Hey, Dan, I just want to ask, how can I bulk for rugby? If you want to bulk for rugby, I think the biggest aspect is how many, this is for Robert, how many, how many calories are you consuming a day? Where are your calories coming from? How much of those calories are coming from fat, carbs, protein? What's that breakdown? And then to bulk, you've got to start at 400 caloric surplus. Just join this. This is from Takedown 64. Before we get into the most effective core exercises for athletes to do to increase speed, Takedown 64 wants to know, what's the best core training for a softball fast pitcher? Granddaughter has been pitching since she was 6. She's now 17, and she's got problems with her back. If she's got problems with her back, I'd look at her hip mobility, hip strength. How does she handle Cossack squats, single leg squats, couch stretch, pigeon pose? Then I would start to work on hollow body rocks. A lot of athletes that have problems in their lower back struggle with that hollow rock position or that hollow hold position, even if they're hanging off of a pull-up bar. You know, if we're thinking about softball players as well, I would even do something like Fowler's where they're doing like a rotational ab movement with a throw. There's going to be some hip work. There's going to be some rotational trunk work there. That's another great way to try and develop that strength. I think lower back, so oftentimes physical therapists will also just say like, your back hurts, it's an ab problem or it's a core weakness. Maybe, okay, and you might even see in this case specifically, I might get an athlete comes in, I'll say, okay, let's do pause front squats, and we do pause front squats for 3-4 weeks in a row where we do it twice a week, and all of a sudden their back pain goes away because they can handle that pause front squat because now they're holding a better position. So, you know, that's sort of how I think we do just need to be aware of that. So the most effective core exercises for athletes to do for speed, I think they're really going to come down to being more dynamic. And I even think, you know, if you've ever seen when we do like a Dane's fast abs, it's like when I'm on a glute ham and I'm going pull in here and pause, pull in, pause. And then if I go out, rotate here and pause, you know, rotate here and pause. That's where you're going to see some really, really good development. Another thing that I think is important is that if we're doing cuts, you know, lateral jumps, lateral cuts, you know, we don't want to collapse in the trunk laterally. Okay. That's where you'll see with trunk control is like if a kid plants and they collapse, they're not able to cut really effectively. If a kid plants and they're stable in their trunk, they're going to get out of that cut faster. So oftentimes plyometrics transfer really well for core strength. Okay. Now we have to cue the athlete on that properly and we have to warm them up effectively. So this is going to just keep coming back to where are they at in the warm-ups? Where are they at with these compound movements? What do they look like when they execute these compound movements? Where are they at when they execute a high-speed movement? How do they cut out of those high-speed movements? And then we can bring that back in with accessories or with specific work, you know, catering towards what the athlete might be lacking. So next thing we're going to get into now is we're going to get into some core strength for sprinting. Don't forget, we are going to be building out that actual program for you here shortly. But first, we want to go into core strength for sprinting. I'm going to share here. This is like one of my all-time favorite videos, by the way. I know it was a couple years ago, but
we're going to cover 4 key exercises that are going to help you understand core-based training for sprinting. And we're going to start right
man,
now.
I was like 275 there. Also, does anyone know who made that drawing on my t-shirt?
What's up, everybody? It's Dane Miller from GarageStrength.com. And if this is your first time to the channel and you're interested in getting is to understand where these specific exercises will impact. You've got your start, then you're going to have your acceleration phase or your drive right here on the right side. I want to see those hands overhead. And I want to see
hip
good
lock
dynamic
position
control all throughout your gut. And so you're going to come back again.
I love this drill. This is like one of the best warm-ups, I swear, right
flexion,
here.
Knee flexion, dorsiflexion here. And so where's this going to transfer over to? If we can think about sprinting at that top end speed, this is going to help your front side mechanics. It's going to help us when we're in maximal speed, okay? So think about once we get to 40, 50, 60 meters,
hold.
Now we can understand that foot's directly below us. Our ground reaction
I think
forces
this is
are
right
nice
when I
and strong,
deadlifted 705.
A good.
Okay, so let's get to the next one. Oh, this is just like last week's live where I got caught with
you're finally ready to take a trip without
the
freaking.
Kids. All right, let's skip that.
Small mechanics, but what we want to focus on is a little bit of trunk flexion.
Okay, this is what I was talking about.
Hip flexion.
This is an
where
awesome
we get
one.
Up on our butt. A lot of
Let's. I really want to show this here.
Now we're gonna stay almost like it's directly over your face. Okay?
I really like this. Boom,
up,
boom.
back down. And when you come back down, try to prevent a good cue. Prevent your shoulder blades from touching the ground. So we're boom, 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 boom. And keep that barbell directly over the face. A lot of people want to
Dude,
push
these
that
are
forward.
movements that you guys
They
can
wanna
take
try and move
today.
it
Like
back.
this barbell
Keep it almost
bicycle
directly over
exercise,
your chin, so
I
you're
love.
here.
There's hip flexion. There's a good hollow position. Don't let the shoulder blades
You
touch
can
the
do
ground. Absolutely
You
freaking
know, once or
awesome.
twice a week.
This
But
is
we're
what I
gonna
was
come
just
back,
talking about, this
and we're gonna have
exercise
this
here.
slight hip flexion, and we don't want to go all the way down. We want to almost create this level plane. And the whole purpose here is we're going to focus on 3 angles that we're coming at the abs. When we come at the trunk from 3 different angles, we can train the body how to absorb
just wanna
force
see if
on
people
all those
comment on
different
this.
angles. And it's all about speed. When we're hitting here, what we're going to be focused on is not these little tiny things like this. We're going to be focused on boom, real quick. So we're almost pulling down
does
as
anybody know
rapidly
who
as
the-
possible
who
and then
drew
squeezing
this
throughout our
drawing
trunk
on my
to
shirt?
hold that.
I really
This is
wanna
where
see
some
if
of the
anybody
hollow
knows.
positions will really
Okay,
a
this is
dumbbell side bend.
one more.
Now,
One
this is a
more because these
kettlebell,
are really
but
good.
Think about if we have a dumbbell or kettlebell, we're going to have one arm here, and we're going to get this. We're going to hold here.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Okay. We're going to hook this up. We got an earthquake bar here. And again, it doesn't need to be super fancy. You could do this with a 5-kilo bar. You could do this with
This
a
is
10-kilo
like
bar.
this
You
one's a
could do this
movement
with
that
10-pound plates.
you should go
But
a
after we do those
little
dumbbell
bit
side
a
bends,
little bit
what I
easier.
like to
Steve
see
Wonderland, your son.
is we're gonna
Now
take
look up
this off,
Keith
and
Herring. Keith
immediately you're gonna
Herring.
start to feel a little
He's actually
shaky.
from
And I
our
wanna
area
see
here.
this
He's
Kamara lunge.
like
So
a world
Kamara lunge is
famous.
we're gonna take a nice little step, boom, and we're gonna hold.
Now
we're
see,
gonna try
this
and
is
squeeze.
where
I'm gonna
we
make sure
should
I'm not
see,
hitting that
like,
barbell.
if
I'm gonna
somebody
go
can
here,
handle if they have
boom,
good trunk
and I wanna
control.
squeeze in my trunk.
This
The
shouldn't be a
whole
main
goal here,
compound
remember,
movement. This
it's
shouldn't
core
be like a
training.
priority. This
So I
is like
don't need to get
either a good
super,
warm up
super
or
deep.
a
I
good
wanna get to that
accessory
point.
exercise. Boom. And that little stop
I'm
and
feeling
control,
it
stop
sort
and
of
control.
oscillate and pull me all
Okay,
over
so
the
we got to
place.
remember that. We oftentimes will have athletes that come in and their coach is doing that as like their main lift just because it looks cool.
Another important element for jumpers is obviously core stability. It's probably one thing I've noticed is it's very neglected. You know, because it's just boring. Oh, let's do some crunches, let's do some abs, let's do just a regular mountain climber. So I'm just gonna have Chris do a regular mountain climber here.
This is Ryan Bailey.
Just a regular mountain climber. And then we'll advance this to make it a little more long jump specific. And this is a more advanced core drill. And so we basically are going to eliminate an arm and eliminate a leg.
Ooh,
And then
yeah.
we're gonna switch,
Boom.
switch.
Boom.
switch.
Love it. That's
That we
good.
like to. Another one's going to be a dead bug, kind of showing the same movement that we would have with our knee up and arm up. Very good.
Good.
And we're really focused on that
Oh, look
ball
at this.
over here. And on this, one of the biggest mistakes we make in jumping is we let the torso have to be engaged to really. So go ahead, Chris. And we're going to do this with a split lunge jump. So we have
This
the
is
head
what I was
up, the
talking about. Is
chest
when
up.
we're doing plyometrics,
Good
we
posture here.
focus on the trunk.
Good.
Focus
We're
on.
not
There
seeing
we
how
go.
high we can jump.
Earl
We're just gonna
comes
get
in.
A little more extension. A little more extension. There it is. That's what we're looking for right there. And when we get more advanced, you can do this drill.
Okay, that's great. Okay, let's get into. Let's see if there's any comments real quickly. A wild Earl joined the chat. So I think that some of this stuff is like just recapping this. It's like it's good to have direct core work that will transfer well, but we've got to look at what we're doing in the warm-ups to make sure that the core and the hips and the back and the upper body are all really, really firing together. All right, let's get into the next thing, because I think that some of this stuff, and here's like possibly my current favorite thing right now, is the fact that we've got two papers, okay? One from 2022, one from 2024. And if we just look at this, I think this is the other big factor here, guys, is like we're trying to show you guys and share with you a lot of the research that we're using on site, a lot of the research that we're using with our own system to try and improve the system and share through this so that we all can just keep improving. So the change of direction with speed. Change of direction with speed is determined by several physical aspects such as linear sprint speed, reactive strength, and power of the leg muscles. So let's think about that. It's being as fast as possible. How quickly can you move? how quickly can you react, right? And then what's the power of your leg muscles, or how much force can they put out in a short period of time or a designated period of time? How much force can your muscles handle? How much force can your leg muscles handle? Okay, it appears that core strength may also play a role in change of direction. However, its relationship remains unclear. Okay, it remains unclear in the sense that it's very hard to put a measurable on core strength, on trunk control. Okay, I believe it's very challenging. So I like to think about like Barry Sanders, right? When Barry Sanders would cut, his torso sort of just staying right here, right here, right here. His legs are moving all over the place. He's got that trunk control. It's hard to put a number on that. It's hard to put a defined aspect on that. We know it's there, but we don't know how to define it. So the aim of this narrative was to analyze the literature addressing the relationship between core strength and change of direction, or the effect of core strength on change of direction. So they can measure what's that core strength, and then they can measure change of direction. They can measure what that relationship is. Okay, so this analysis revealed a significant relationship between the parameters of core strength and stability. So the pressure of the activated core muscles during lower limb movement and the greatest mean force output of maximum volunteered contraction. That's the first time I think I've ever seen maximum volunteered contraction, and the time in the agility t-test. So this parameter was not significantly related to the strength endurance of core muscles, total time in the plank test. Core training provides a sufficient stimulus for the development of change of direction in less skilled middle adolescent athletes. It's sort of what I was talking about, where if you have an athlete who doesn't execute a V-up effectively, or if you're that individual and you don't do V-ups very, very well, this is where you can come into play. Okay, while its effectiveness decreases in higher skilled adult athletes. So these findings indicate that core muscle strength contributes significantly to the change of direction speed. Core training is therefore useful for change of direction speed. So I just want to click on one of these quick here, see if we can come up with, okay, so they have some papers in here, some charts. Do we have any charts here? See if you guys can see that. Yes, we're looking at like core endurance, prone. They're still like not super clear about what this means in the sense of like trunk muscle and training. All right. It's not bad. It's just decent, but we know it's there, right? We know that it's happening. Now, this is the one I did want to go into. This is from 22. Both these papers are solid papers, by the way. Absolutely great for taking this. And I think as a strength coach, if you're watching this, if you're an athlete, if you're watching this as a strength coach, you can watch and say like, okay, so change of direction has, or core strength has an impact on change of direction. So what I would do then is say, if I see someone struggle, let's just say they're doing a 90-degree cut. They run and they cut 90 degrees. Okay, so they come forward and they cut 90. If I see someone struggles with that, the first thing I'm going to look at is what were their feet doing? You know, where was their feet in relation to their hip and to their trunk? Are they in front of it, or are they behind it? Because if they're behind it, then you're going to collapse past it. So if that technique lines up, the next thing I'm going to look at is, are they chopping? Are they having too many false steps? If they're having too many false steps, then it's probably a leg strength problem. Okay. If they don't get out of it quickly and they sort of deflate, it's probably an impulse problem, meaning they don't cut very quickly, or they don't know how to apply force in a very short period of time. So now we're looking at impulse exercises. And then we'll see the next thing is like, okay, if it's a cutting issue or they collapse with their upper body and it gets past their foot, then that's a core issue. So I think that's another thing is like troubleshooting, change of direction with trunk movement, with impulse movement, with speed movement. Now that helps you work through the process, okay? And that's where I think we're going to go here, is that the effect of core training on skill performance among athletes. And this is a systematic review. So they're looking at multiple different studies. So this study aims to present a critical review of the existing literature on the effect of core training on skill performance. So think about learning like shooting a three-point shot. Think about throwing a baseball. Think about hitting a tennis ball. Think about throwing a shot put. does, in this case, core training improve skill performance? Okay. And then they wanted to provide recommendations and suggest future research directions for both coaches and researchers. So the data in this study was reported using the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis, PRISMA. So they look at 16 of 119 studies that hopefully met their inclusion criteria, and then that's what they use. They're using 16 studies. The scoring of the 16 studies ranges from 2 to 5. Okay, so core training could potentially improve skill performance among football, handball, basketball, swimming. Now think about that. You get a stronger trunk or a stronger core. Now you can apply the skill of a specific stroke when you're swimming more effectively, okay? Because you can hold better posture, more or improve skill in Muay Thai, in karate, in dance, in volleyball, in badminton, and golf. Okay, so compared with traditional training methods, core training is a new strength training method. Arguable, but okay, let's go with it. Strong core muscles function as hubs in the biological motor chain. Hubs would need to be defined, which creates a fulcrum for the 4 limbs, strength, and establish a channel for the cohesion, transmission, and integration of upper and lower body limbs. Now, I want to do this real quickly because a lot of people will use this term and not define it. Okay, so if we're looking at the point on which a lever rests, okay, that's so really fulcrum, the point on which a lever rests, a thing that plays a central role in the activity, event, or situation. So that's what they're saying here, is that the fulcrum of the 4 limbs. The core is playing just a super huge role. It's the center point of the 4 limbs. Okay, and this establishes a channel for the cohesion, transmission, and integration of the upper and lower body limbs. In other words, core training optimizes the transfer and overall control of motion and force to the terminal segment within athletic actions. Oh, so in other words, we'll just say this as complex as possible. Core training optimizes the training, the transfer, and the overall control of motion, force to the terminal segment. Okay. Meanwhile, core training could increase stability and stiffness in the spine to reduce unrequired energy links. That's sort of what I was referring to when you see someone like Barry Sanders cutting back in the day, Saquon Barkley, the best basketball players today can cut so well, in torso movement during the exertion of external loads. This mechanism could help athletes achieve better skill performance. Therefore, this review suggests that core training should be considered integrated into athletes' daily training routines. Okay, so they don't really come back with a really clear take home of what you should be doing. They just say like, hey, we should be using this. Okay, so I think that, that's all well and good. I think it's important. I think it's important to acknowledge, but I think that we still need to have some take home, right? And I think that's where I'm trying to roll with today, is that if we want to have a take home of what we can do with core-based training, then I think there's got to be a place to start. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out on my paper, I'm going to write a couple things that I think through with core-based training, and what that looks like. And after I write through what I think about with core-based training, I'm going to give you like 2 days that really brings you that cohesive system of core strength. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're taking something home. And before we go on further, if you guys want more in-depth videos like this, make sure you just tune in every week to the lives. We're going to be streaming videos and podcasts every Tuesday. We just did a podcast with Joel Seedman, which is going to be streaming live on Tuesday. And these things are we're going to be continuously developing this. We've got Will Rattel coming on next week. We got a lot, Michael Drock is coming on as well. We've got some really, really good guests in our upcoming podcasts. On top of that, we're doing our own podcast and then these YouTube lives to really just provide the biggest comprehensive breakdown of sports performance on the platform of YouTube and really on the internet. So let's get into this, right? Let's get into, have you ever heard the story of Hannes Hopley, Dane, relevant to today's topic? Hannes Hopley just breaking the national record? What's the story of Hannes Hopley? I don't think wrestlers sprint that fast. They don't sprint fast, but they try. Yeah, Rack 979. What's the story there? I don't know exactly what you're pertaining to, but let me know. I'll be tuned. Keep them coming. You're doing the Lord's work. Hey, thank you. And that's the big thing here is that we're trying to provide like the best feedback really for strength and conditioning coaches. So when I'm writing a program, right, a 6-day push-pull, yeah, it's solid. Okay, so if I'm looking at let's just say trunk work, and it might be I might need a darker pen here. If Andrew, if you're listening, if you have like a marker, bring me a marker. Okay, so if I'm going to write this down, okay, we're going to be looking at yo, Andrew, can you bring me a Sharpie? If I go core here, then we go, okay, warm-ups. Okay, let's go contrast. That should be good. Contrast. Thanks, pal. Okay, so I'm going to write this down, and then I'm going to cover this so you can see it pretty clearly. Okay, and this is sort of, I'm going to try and walk you guys through how I think about things with my giant dome. Okay, so we got warm-ups, we got contrast, strength, okay, and then we got high speed, specificity, and this is specificity, and then 4 would be isolated, okay? Okay, so let's go warm up. Okay. And I think you guys can see that now. Let me know if you guys can see that on your computers. Contrast methods. Okay. High speed. And I'm going to tell you how I go through this process. And this is just sort of how I think about it. And I'll actually even give you an example today of what I did with Nick. Okay. Okay, so you see my bad handwriting. So if I'm going to go warm-ups, okay, so I can use these in warm-ups. I can use this in contrast. I can use this in high-speed specificity. And then I can use this in an isolated situation. Okay, so let's go into the actual workout. So let's just say workout number 1. Let's just say simple leg day. Okay. So warm up would be, let's look at trunk rolls. Let's say overhead lunge, and let's say one more. Let's just say like a light past the plate. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's the warm up. Okay, and I'm going to show you this a little bit closer. Ab rack 979. So he finally gets 1 rep and shows coach. Hannes then says, "Let me try that." Bangs out, does it on the spot. Okay. Could make it just. Okay, so then we get into the workout. Okay, so 1A. So now I'm thinking about, I like to come back and I'll use this paper here. This is like my guiding star, right? And I go, okay, we got the warm-ups done. Okay, contrast and strength work. So now I'm going to say, let's just go 1 box clean, because that's my favorite. Okay, so we'll do the 1 box clean, and that'll target the trunk when they catch. But it's nothing specific, okay? Now let's say 2A. Now we're going to do, let's go single leg squat, okay? And so now we can see they're in a unilateral, so this will be more dynamic. It's a unilateral, and they've got to be stable in that position. 2B, we'll do pogo hop, one leg. Okay. So now high speed. Okay, so if you check this out, we're going one box clean, then into the single leg squat, then into pogo hops on one leg over mini hurdles. Now we're getting the trunk work from the clean, then we're doing some dynamic work and strength work with the single leg squat, and then we're going to get high speed trunk work with the pogo hop to keep that under control. So now we're covering this and we're getting a little bit of this. And then we can finish, let's just say, this is a pretty simple, generic program. Let's say we do walking lunge. Let's say walking lunge where I hold hip lock. So now we're doing something specific for speed, and then we'll do after that we'll do bicycle crunch with bar. And this is going to be that much more isolated. Okay, so now I can take this document, which is like, okay, this is how I think about core work. And if I have an athlete comes to me and we test them and their trunk is weak, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, okay, let's go, one box clean, single leg squats, single leg pogo hop as a contrast here, right? And this is actually something I just did with Nick. So Nick did 150 kilos, average velocity was 0.78 at 150 kilos single leg squat. And then we did the pogo hops on one leg. And then we got into some walking lunges and barbell bicycle crunches here. So this is going to be the isolated movement. This is going to be the accessory movement. So now we're seeing how that plays out. So actually one of my athletes, I think Sam broke Hannes Hopley's discus record. Okay, back to this workout is that if we take this, and that's our leg day, I'm going to show you now how I would think through with that upper body day. Okay, so if I go through here and I say upper body workout 2, so let's go workout number 2, and people might say, well, what is that going to have to do with speed? Well, let me show you. Okay, because if I say upper, right, and we're trying to focus on core, let's just say we do this warm-up. We do the exact same warm-up, so we're doing trunk rolls, overhead lunges, past the plate. Okay, trunk rolls are probably my current favorite, where you do like a V-up, and then you roll a Superman, and then you do overhead lunges. Then you do past the plate. Okay, so we go through that 2 or 3 times. Now, first exercise. Let's say first exercise, we want very, very high speed. Okay, so let's do linebacker jerk. Linebacker jerk. Okay, so now when we're looking at linebacker jerk, super high speed, we go back to this document here. Okay, and we know that this can be a warm-up or it can be just dynamic. High speed. Okay, then we go 2A. I'm actually going to do this. Watch this. PA press. And I'm going to superset this. I'm going to superset this with hanging leg raise, pull up. So now we're seeing on the PA press, dynamic. We're going to do a pull up with a plate. Not the best description, but we're going to do a pull up here with a plate on our toes. Okay. Ab focus. So if we're doing a pull-up and we have the plate on our toes, now we're going to feel that in the abs, and we're going to be doing the PA press before that, which is really going to be, the fulcrum. As they mentioned in that paper that we went over earlier, they talk about the fulcrum. They talk about the transfer point. So we're getting the transfer point from the hip flexion into the hip extension, through the trunk, into the PA press, and then we're going to do some more hanging leg raises with the pull-up focus to really focus on holding the hollow position on the pull-up. And then finally, okay, let's go 3A. 3B. Okay, 3A, 3B. Let's go. Here we go with a good one. Dumbbell. And let's pretend here. Okay. So this is where we could have a power athlete or a sprinter do this. Okay. Specific. And let's say strength. Okay. So now I'm looking at this and I'm going, all right. I've got, how's my bicep look down there? Oh, it looks small. How about my forearm? Man, my forearm even looks small. I don't like that angle. So I'm using this paper as my guide, okay? And what's cool is like this is how I think through a program, right? Like so I'm writing a program, I'm going like, okay, what's the top 4 things that we got to hit? Okay, there's always 4 things that we have to hit. Usually those 4 are going to fall in line with endurance, speed, impulse, or strength, okay? But here, core specifically, so we mine down even further, core is going to play a major role in sprinting. It's going to be a major role in impulse. It's going to be a major role actually in endurance. And obviously it does in strength. So now we go into this workout too. We go, okay, linebacker jerks. Okay, so if we go linebacker jerks, this is going to be big time speed. And the fulcrum points are gut, applying that into our hands, okay? Then we have PA press, some more work. We're going to have stable shoulders. And we have to drive that hip flexion into hip extension into the dumbbells. And we're going to superset that with a pull-up where we place a plate on our toes. Okay, so then we have to hold the hollow position while we execute a pull-up. That's really challenging. And then we're going to keep dialing this in with a dumbbell alternating bench. So we have to pause in the hole. Boom, 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 boom. We have to stay stable in our trunk while we're pressing, applying a massive amount of force in that, and then that side medicine ball throw. So if you guys see this, that side med ball throw right here is going to be specific for a thrower, specific for a pitcher. You could do a crow hop into a shot put throw, like you might have a pitcher do that. You could have a golfer doing that side medicine ball throw. But this is really a workout that you guys could take home and do today, where you got your leg day here, working through everything. You got your upper body day here, and you could repeat this a couple times. So I thought this would be something fun that we could do, laying this out and basing, and also at the same time, for any coaches that are watching, you can see sort of how I think through and break down the actual programming and layout for everybody. So let me know what you think about that, if that's helpful. I hope that helped you think through, and if we do that more frequently, I think everybody will be able to learn a lot, not only from how I program, but also like the actual process of programming. Because I think that, you know, this paper here actually plays a really key role. You know, really you should start with, like, before the core goal, the goal being core here, I would try and identify the athlete and the problem that I'm really looking at. So let me know if that helped. And even, you know, I see some wrestling comments, some wrestling questions. When I'm looking at wrestlers, I really think trunk control and the application into their hands, that's where a lot of mat strength comes into play. So if we've got a strong trunk, if we've got strong lats, if we've got a strong grip, and all that together, it's going to blow up. I'm not sure about that, Keist, if we would put the workout either in a comment after the stream or on Discord. This is something maybe you guys could bring this or contribute. Do more people use Discord or like, I'm on a community channel for an influencer that I follow, and I was wondering, like, if we did an Instagram community channel where it's like I could even post stuff from my own personal Instagram in there into the community channel, so like I would be participating in that a little bit more, so you guys, you know, I could take a picture and then get into the community channel, post this, and be like, hey guys, check out, you know, what I covered today in the YouTube live, and that would help you guys further, and then people on that platform as well. Let me know if Discord's a place, or if that's the community channel, or even like Facebook used to be like that. I'm not really sure how that is now. Let me know. MacGyver is saying he wishes that he could show a before and after of his son. So, they try. Yeah, I mean that I'd love to do that. I'd love to see that before and after. You could send that. Yeah, we would use it probably on a review if you wouldn't mind. Steve's saying he's either on here on YouTube or he's on the website, and we're trying to improve the website right now. So, I think the big takeaway here with core work is that the biggest low hanging fruit with core strength for speed is that you can use it very, very effectively in the warm-up. And if we use it effectively in unstable situations, and if we use it effectively in the warm-up, so let's say PVC pipe walks, and then you do some specific work targeting the abs, targeting the core, targeting the lower back, that's where those core rolls, those trunk rolls I was talking about, and then you do some rotational work in a split stance position, the warm-up is easily the best place to see the quickest transfer. Then the next step would be, okay, let's look at the strength aspect. How's their trunk or their core when they're doing a clean, when they're doing a front squat, when they're doing a single leg squat, when they're doing some type of lunge possibly. Then you can focus on that. Then we look at high speed and specificity. What's their core look like when they're doing a jump? What's their core look like when they're doing a medicine ball throw? And now we can really, a side medicine ball throw. Now we can look at that and break down where is their weakness. And then finally we get into that isolated aspect if they struggle with doing like an ab roller or a V-up or a pass the plate or anything along those lines. But I think it's important to layer the concepts and layer the aspects of core-based work so that you're not just going in and doing an ab day. You're not just coming in and having a coach say their abs are weak. Okay, just saying the abs are weak there's no test. Prove to me that the individual has weak abs. And you might be able to prove that out if they struggle to do V-ups effectively, or if they can't do an ab roll, or if they can't do a front squat without collapsing forward, or oftentimes that's also related to their upper back. So that's another big thing is I think that we have to look at core more so through the lens of trunk. Is it the gut? Is it the back? Is it the transverse abs? Like, where is it specifically? And I think ultimately when we're looking at high performance, we shouldn't be looking at just the abs. We should be looking at the abs, the lower back, the mid back, the upper back, and how that is all linked together, and even linking that in with the hips, most importantly, because that's where you're going to see a lot of that transfer into the speed. Yeah, and Steve just actually said something really interesting. He found that for him, running a little faster for the Army fitness test was doing flutter kicks. So that could even be in the pool. Like you're doing flutter kick in the pool here, you're holding that hollow position. That's a really, really good transfer. And even if you would do that, let's say, inside the gym. So, all right, I got to get down to weightlifting training. Thanks for tuning in to this week's YouTube Live on core strength exercises to sprint faster. Until next time, see you next week. Peace.